All right, fifth graders, today we're going to be diving into this concept of probability. And probability is something that works kind of hand in hand with fractions and percents. So they all are kind of learned kind of together because they all kind of go hand in hand together. And probability, basically, what that term means is what is the likelihood of something happening? Probability was kind of thought about and created to try to give a mathematical number on a random event. Okay, so flipping a coin, rolling a dice, these are random events. Okay, we don't know what would happen if we roll them. I don't know what number is going to come up. We could we try to assign some probability, assign some math with it, but it's just a guess. It helps us to make really good guesses. It's the likelihood of something happening. And whenever we solve probability, we write it like a fraction. And it's this kind of simple equation up here, and how we write that probability. So we have the number of favorable outcomes would go on the top of our fraction of our equation, and then the bottom of our fraction is the number of possible outcomes. So it's kind of that part and the whole, just like a fraction. And when I say favorable incomes or outcomes, I mean, like, what are you searching for? So maybe it's, hey, I have to roll an odd number, or I have to roll a 3, or I have to roll a 4, whatever you are searching for. The bottom is, hey, just how many different things could possibly come up. All right. So let's say we're playing a game and I need to roll a 4 to win the game. All right. If I can roll a 4 on my next roll, I win the game. All right. So I have to think about this in terms of probability. All right. So if I'm trying to figure out, well, what's the probability, the likelihood that I win the game on this roll, then I would put that on, then I would kind of write it like a fraction. So my probability, if I have a 4, the number of favorable incomes, well, I only have one. If I roll a 4, is the only way I could win. All right, so only rolling a 4. That's the only outcome, favorable outcome that I could get. So that's going to go up top. Now, what's the number of possible outcomes? Well, think about a dice. I could roll a 1, I could roll a 2, I could roll a 3, I could roll a 4, I could roll a 5, or I could roll a 6. So the number of possible outcomes would be 6. All right. So that tells me that my probability is 1 out of 6, or 1/6. So you can write that like a fraction. I could write it like a sentence too. I have a probability of 1 out of 6. I could write it in as 1 in 6. There's lots of ways we could do it, but I could figure out that, hey, I have a 1 out of 6 chance of winning the game right now. That's my probability. Now, how does this all work with percentages? Well, if I have a fraction, I then know how to find the percent chance. So if I pull up a calculator and I solve that probability, so I have a 1 out of 6 chance. You can see I have that decimal. I know that I move that decimal 2 spots, meaning that I have a 16.66 repeated percent chance of winning that game. So they all kind of work together here. Okay, so let's try to figure out one more. Let's say now I don't get it that time, but it comes back around to my turn. And then let's say for some reason in the game, I can now win if I roll a 1 or if I roll a 5. All right, I can win with either a 1 or a 5. So what's my probability? Well, the number of favorable outcomes I have is if I roll a 1 or I roll a 5. So I have 2 favorable outcomes. The number of possible outcomes is still a 6 because there are 6 things I could roll. So I have a 2 in 6, or a 2 out of 6 chance of winning. And if I went back to the calculator, 2 divided by 6 gives me that 0.3333. So I have about a 33.3% chance of winning. Okay, so we just take that number of favorable outcomes on the top, the number of possible outcomes on the bottom. All right. And we're going to dive into some different problems with that.